Mateus Asato is one of the best guitarists I've ever met. He's known for his one-man covers of popular songs and his uniquely melodic and tasteful improvisations.
You're so good. It's frustrating.
No, I mean...
Recently, I performed with him at the Universal Audio Studio, where we did a mashup cover of 2 songs by Billie Eilish and John Lennon. And I got a chance to sit down with him and ask him a bunch of questions about things I was dying to know about. Everything from how he built his musical taste, how he thinks about chords, melody, groove.
So it's like note, feel, note, feel.
And how he would guide a beginner to take a set of chords and build it into a beautiful and original piece of music.
How do you go from, to something a little more creative and more personal?
This is a bit of a different format than usual, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to share this great information with you all. So without further ado, here is the interview.
It's so cool to finally meet you. Really.
Likewise, Nahre.
It's so cool.
You're amazing.
You're the first person that I've done a cover with, and a cover period. So I've been learning a lot today.
We were talking a little bit about coming up with this chord melody situation. So to me, I mean, let's just say we're talking about a cover, right? So there's this cover that I did of the Bee Gees song, How Deep Is Your Love? So the first thing that I do, I try to recognize the melody, I identify the melody. So let's just, How Deep Is Your Love in key of E major. Where my mind goes, I start building up, stacking up more melodic sounds with it. So instead of just playing what I just did, I could have done and then you just start messing around with different things.
Is that just something that occurred naturally over time because you have the language in your ears so much, or do you have a system in terms of at these spots, between these chords, I'm gonna add a little more?
I actually never thought much about, okay, when is the appropriate time? I think it depends a lot on the rhythm. The first step would definitely be the groove. I have to analyze the song and see if the groove is right to play that kind of stuff. I always bring Jimi Hendrix on the table. I think he was one of the most revolutionary guitar players, electric guitar players, because when he played rhythm guitar, it was actually not 100% rhythm all the time. Like one thing is just that's rhythm guitar, but Jimmy would always, not always, who am I to try to copy what he did, but it was something so he was always mixing up things. It's more about the being sensitive enough to understand where to find the right spots. Again, it's more about trying things and see oh yeah, this feels good in this kind of space, This is a Red Hot Chili Peppers song by John Frusciante, so it's just it's kind of you give them the note, the reference, the root, and then you add a little flavor, a little feel. So it's note, feel, note, feel. People need to understand where the direction is going.
Again, going back to how I hear how you build solos and just your arrangements, it sounds organic and tasteful. It's very tasteful.
Thank you so much. And that was something that I did not think much of it, but I've always wanted to be able to play guitar by myself. And again, I mean, of course, every guitar player could actually do that, but in a way that could be still entertaining. Like little by little, I start thinking in ways of incorporating those things, and in a more theoretical way, like it was very important for me to know like the inversions, those triads, and mastering the fretboard in a way that I could like, okay, in case if I want to play an F chord, I would be able to play this F chord in any sort of area of the neck, like an F. You know what I mean? Like.
What would a beginner / intermediate musician do in terms of taking that and starting to build something on their instrument, on the piano or guitar?
And you mean that in a way of like just playing the song?
Yeah, like I if you were to imagine, or I imagine a beginner pianist being like, okay, I understand the chords. C major, E minor,
Yeah.
F major. I think a lot of pianists or a lot of musicians can be stuck at just being like,
Oh, just makes sense. Okay.
how do you go from, to something a little more creative and more personal?
Okay. Well, again, I think it's important to know first the foundation of the song. So of course, chords are mandatory. Okay, in this situation of that song, it's just like C, E minor, F, and I'll start messing around with different inversions. So I'll probably be playing like, and the second round I'll be playing like, or maybe. Or just triads. And mess around with like adding like extension, maybe like, because again, this is a regular C major. I already add like the 7 on it because it sounds prettier, So you start adding your little flavors on it. So in my situation, I love opening chords, so. So messing around with the chords first would be like already a good novelty of comparing to.
And also what we're both doing is finding a very simple sort of transition point from chord to chord that is kind of like a melody, It's sort of in the background. It softens up the chords a little more. Going back to the beginner, now they feel a little more comfortable with the chords. How do they break from that to now building something more on top?
So now that I'm already familiar with the chords and the variations that I could provide, messing around with just the progression itself, I would probably start adding those little flavors I played in the beginning, where it would be like, where can I fit this? Because from C to E minor, it's already too fast, so maybe I'm not gonna do that kind of stuff. But maybe when I play the F chord, extended a little longer, I could be able to do something like this, Then I add those little like feels.
The feels.
And then if I want to mess around with the actual melody of the song, and then I'll figure out, okay, where is the range? What's the melody at? It would be. So, okay, how can I make this in a very like musical way too? And be like. The more familiar you get with the progression and, you know, with the feeling, with the rhythm, the more confident you're gonna be able to start exploring different things, you know.
I think something important for everyone to remember is that taking chords and then building something on your own, there are many tiny steps that you can take to get more comfortable, and one shouldn't jump into it hearing some amazing solo and trying to emulate that first, because if you go from that end without understanding what's underneath, then you end up playing just a lot of filler.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, even if you're just playing one exercise, you know, a regular pentatonic run or scale, I just try to make that as most musical as possible. Because again, at the end of the day, what's the point of us practicing scale runs 4 hours a day? I don't know, if we don't make that in a musical. You know, there's no point. It's just for our selfish, you know, pleasure. I'm just like, yeah, cool, I know how to play this. But okay, like, how can you make that into a musical thing?
So just to go over a few things that were mentioned in this interview, I really love how Mateus combines a very intuitive approach with systematic thinking. He first pays attention to the chords of the song, and when there is space, he adds in fills. And he doesn't overdo it, he doesn't overthink it, which is key. He really prioritizes listening to the melody and paying attention to what is appropriate for each song. And that is why I think his music is very tasteful, it's very enjoyable to listen to. And it also makes me personally so interested in the guitar as a pianist, because he talks about the layout of the fretboard, how he uses open chords, and some of those things I really don't understand. So maybe in the future, I may spend some time learning the guitar myself. If you're interested in that, please let me know in the comments. Thank you so much to Universal Audio for hosting us, and also the full-length interview will be available on Universal Audio's YouTube as well as our duo performance. Do check that out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.